Today, we're going to talk about handling objections, which is always a great topic, and it definitely helps you, run your business more efficiently and know exactly what to say to clients who throw out, obviously, objections at you. Now, in today's market, some of these classic objections that we were used to hearing have kind of, at least in my opinion, a few of them have changed on the way we handle those. And, with that being said, I kind of want to go through a couple of them, and we'll ask individual agents to kind of give us their approach and how they handle these objections from their clients, and we'll talk about them and in best practice. So starting with, we'll save the commission by selling it ourselves. Sherry Anderson, can you kick it off for us and tell us how you would handle that objection from a client of yours?
Wait, why are you picking on me first?
Actually, what we're going to try to accomplish here today is we're going to talk with everybody to see how they would handle that, because obviously in the market that we're in, any for sale by owner could sell it themselves easily. Okay. But the difference between a for sale by owner selling it themselves and an agent selling it for them would mean the difference of them maybe getting one contract instead of 10 contracts where we're bidding the property up. I mean, do you really want to save the $2,000 or the 1%, or whatever the commission would be doing it that way? Or, would you, because most of these for sale by owners too, when they sell it themselves, there actually is a buyer's agent involved. So really, if they're paying out 2.5%, we're only talking about another 2.5%. And with the competition right now, I mean, if we went around the room, Brooks, what was the last house that you sold in Carlisle Road? What was it listed for, and what did it sell for?
Yeah, so we listed that one at $234,900. This was a 1,100 square foot rancher right across the street from Highland Elementary School, and ended up getting 3 offers that pushed it up to, we had one offer up to $255,000.
Okay, so $20,000 over 21. What
Yeah.
about the one in Rossmoy Manor? That was listed at what? 2?
That was listed right at 200, and again went about $20,000 over asking price. But a common theme is having about 30 plus showings, and then 5 to 7 offers that cause these things to go well above asking price.
Right. And Kong, how about you? Have you had any recently that have gone extremely high over the asking price? Because I know there's some that have gone 30, 40, 50,000.
Yeah, I mean, it's not uncommon to get, actually, we've had some buyer deals recently where we've had to go, 10, 15 grand over, but not just that, the terms have cleaned themselves up. So that definitely benefits the seller when there's less contingencies.
Right. So if somebody came to you or you went to a listing appointment and the seller said, that they could sell it themselves, how would you handle it, Colin?
Well, first off, Mr. Seller, are you paying a buyer agent commission?
Yes.
And what commission are you paying, sir?
2.5%.
Okay. So your house is 200,000. You're paying out 2.5%. That's 5,000. Now, if you were to have a listing agent and you were to pay another 2.5%, that's another $5,000. Do you think, sir, I can get you more than $5,000 for your house?
Well, I don't know. I mean, why would you be able to do that?
Okay. First off, we'll be listing your house in the multi-list where there's definitely more exposure than you just sticking a sign out front. When we create competition for your property, not just price goes up, but the terms of the deal cleans itself up. What I find is a lot of for sale by owners don't have the experience that we professional realtors have in negotiating a deal, and issues come later on in your deal. Okay. Have you ever sold a house on your own, sir?
No, I haven't.
Okay. So you're probably not aware that there's other parts of the deal, such as the inspection contingency, the mortgage contingencies. How aware are you of those timelines and timeframes?
Well, once I got a buyer, I probably was going to get an attorney involved.
Okay. And how much is that attorney going to cost, sir?
I'm not sure. I didn't check on that yet.
Yeah. Probably, if not the same, if not more than hiring a professional realtor to handle it for you. Do you think we can meet today at 4 o'clock so I can go into more detail about this and try to help you get as much as we can and at the same time get you the cleanest deal possible?
Sure.
Okay.
All right. Good job, Kong. Yep. So that's one way to handle it. Michelle, how about you? How are you handling that? I'm sure you've gone on a listing appointment in the last 6 months that somebody has said to you that they might be able to think about selling it themselves and save on the commission. What would you say?
Have. So the couple things that I bring up are, the details that many people don't know or understand that also go with just putting a sign in the yard, getting a contract, and handling some showings. So I make sure I ask them, do you have a title company that you'll, let handle this? Who's going to prepare the deed for you? How will you negotiate the home inspection if they want one? What if there's an appraisal cut? Because we're seeing those now. So how will you handle an appraisal cut? So I kind of throw out the questions that cause difficulty in a transaction just to make them aware, and so they understand, and then point out that there's value in having a realtor that can take care of that for you. In addition to pointing out, you could have multiple showings. Are you going to be available? Who's going to show the house? Who's going to let them in? Who's going to make sure they're pre-qualified first? So I just kind of bring up all of the things that we do that most people don't understand from, the behind the scenes, and kind of get the answers, and it just kind of sets the tone, or kind of, plants a seed in their mind that there is some value there. And then, like Kong said, can I set up a time and show you what we will do as far as the marketing, what we'll do, the different details that come with this, how we're going to handle it, how we'll handle multiple offers for you, things like that. So I just kind of point out the steps that go with it that most people aren't aware of.
Right. So you're not just focusing on the commission itself. You're looking at the overall aspect of the whole project, that it's not just trying to save the commission. There's a whole process to this thing that has to take place for this deal to go through.
Correct.
And you're pointing out all those different processes that they're going to have to handle that they probably are not aware of. Because like Kong said, they're probably thinking they can just stick a sign in, somebody's going to drive by and they're just going to buy it and it's going to be that easy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we all know that it's not that easy. Just like you said, with the appraisal cuts, the order and the title insurance, the inspections, everything that goes with it, the timelines as far as whether or not things are going to close on time or not close on time, the coordination of the move in, the move out, everything that goes along with it. So good. That's another way of handling it. How about you, Kara? How would you handle that in today's market as far as, we could just put a sign on it and sell it ourselves and save the commission?
I first, whenever I go in, I have the comps already pulled, and I ask the seller, well, that's great. It's a lot of work to sell a home. Let me ask you this. Why would you want to do that? And they say they're going to save some money. And then I ask them, what do you think your home would list for today in this market? This market has just changed so much over the last, several months. What do you feel that your home would list for today? And then they'll say, and a lot of times they're low. So I would pull out my comps at that point and show them and say, it's like this. I mean, you are busy. You are whatever they do, and I certainly could not, whatever their job is. But this takes a lot of time. Then I go into what Michelle said and just talk about the showings, organizing all of that, every objection that could happen and how we handle it.
Okay. Somebody that would want to sell it on their own, to me, I mean, they would be a buyer's dream today.
Yes,
I mean, a buyer's dream.
yes,
I could go in and buy your house with no competition.
right.
Okay, so everybody that's on the call, how many people this year have been involved in a transaction where the buyer has waived financing? Raise your hand.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
many people have been on the call have been involved where the buyers waived the inspections? Raise your hand.
Mhm.
Okay. How many people on the call have been involved in a deal this year where the buyer said, don't pay the difference of the appraisal? Everybody. You think that that for sale by owner is going to negotiate those type of terms with a buyer that there's no competition on? No, they're a buyer's dream. Having us involved creates all these other things because we're exposing it to more people. So that's another way to talk to these people, in the sense that we're creating this emotion in this deal. I mean, if you've ever gone to an auction and bought a house at an auction, I mean, you get yourself involved in it, you just keep raising your hand because you want to buy the damn thing. And that's what's happening when there's 10 offers on a property. But when a seller tries to do it on their own, they're not going to get any of the terms and conditions we're not going to negotiate for them, for real. They're not going to get it. Okay, who else do we got on the call? How about you, Sherry? Now that a couple other people have spoke, what do you think? How would you handle it if somebody said to you that they wanted to just put a sign on it and sell it themselves?
He's on the phone with a client.
Oh, she's on the phone. How about you, Bill? How would you handle it?
I mean, everybody's pretty much hit all the points. I mean, there's so many things that need to be done in order to sell a house, from marketing to photographs to making sure you have pre-approved buyers coming in the house. There's a whole litany of lists. Everybody's touched on them.
Yeah. So again, if it was a $200,000 house and all they're saving is $5,000, I mean, certainly most of these homes are selling for much more than $5,000. And then we're going to do all the work, like you're saying, right? I mean, all you and Michelle both have said pretty much the same thing, that there's a whole lot more work that has to happen in order for this deal to close. And if we're able to get them $5,000 more and it's the same net, why wouldn't they want us to take on the liability and all the work? I mean, it makes sense to do that. Yep. Who else do we got on here? Jim Penny, how are you handling it? I know you've had some great successes here lately and have closed some nice transactions in the last week. Have you had this objection come up at all?
Well, not so much recently, Tim. I have it come up on all the for sale by owner calls I make, though, and I've been trying to get over that objection. One of the things that I've been trying to do is I tell them how we do a home inspection up front. You know, we paid for the cost of that. You know, we also bring up a lot of the points of that the other agents are mentioning too. So, and I did actually get a for sale by owner on Monday of last week, so I did get a new listing, so that was great. You're muted.
Yeah, you're on mute.
Tell us about that for sale by owner. What happened with it?
Well,
Did they have any objections for you?
Actually, that one worked out pretty well. I called the guy, I guess about 2 weeks ago, and I just kind of chatted him up. He had a lot of cars on his pictures on his ad on Zillow, and I'm a big car guy, so I started talking to him about cars. He had an old Corvette. He had some kit cars and this and that, and we just had a conversation, and they wanted to give a little time on their own, and then he ended up calling me about a week later, and he said, you know, I called you back because you were a car guy.
Okay.
So I just went down and talked to him. I talked to him about my car club, and actually that one wasn't that hard. So I think just sometimes finding that commonality can work too.
Okay. Let's try Steve Kunkel. Congratulations, first of all, on your engagement. Welcome back to reality here and home. Are you having that problem at all, or have you had that objection this year with regards to somebody saying that they want to list it themselves because they could save the commission?
I did have it once, And thank you very much. It's good to be back. Super excited to start a whole new chapter of life. But anyway, yeah, did have it happen once. And in this particular case, I was kind of dealing with a guy who was a little bit more of a combination of like an analytical driver kind of guy. And I said, look, let me put it to you real simple. Number one, bottom line here is that I'm gonna sell your house for more money and get you a cleaner offer and do all the work. And let me give you an analogy. If you were called into court for any reason, you'd hire an attorney, wouldn't you?
Yes.
You'd hire a professional who knows what the heck is going on in that world way better than you do. And you're paying that person to get you either out of trouble or get you a better deal or what have you, ultimately get you a better outcome. This is the same exact kind of thing.
Okay, good. That's a good analogy. I'm glad you brought that up. Brooks, what's the next objection that you wanted to talk about a little bit?
So moving on to the next one, I've actually, heard this one too. Let's list high. We can always come down later.
Okay. Kong, you've always been good at that, although it's a different market than what you're used to with the objection handler of chasing the market. So how would you handle today about some of the sellers that now there's been a group of sellers that have put their properties on the market at a great price and we're pushing it up. And then we have a group of sellers that have put their property on the market really high and they're not selling and they've extended the marketing time of the averages. So how would you handle that group that would want to put it on the market and test the market? What would you do, Kong? Well,
Pricing it high does concern me, Mr. Seller. Can I explain why?
Yes.
Okay. You're going to get the most value out of your property right now in this market. Agree? It's the hottest market ever. Yeah. Do you agree with me, Tim?
Yep.
Okay. With that said, what creates the higher prices right now? Competition, right?
Okay.
That's what always creates higher prices, is when you have multiple people come in and try to outbid each other because they love your house so much. Okay. My concern with pricing it too high is you're only going to get a few people to come in. Okay. Wouldn't you rather have 20 people come in and look at your house in a span of 4 days than one person going into your house and looking at it and say, okay, I'll bid it. I'll buy it, but I'm going to give you maybe list price if you're lucky.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So I think the best way to do it, because the market's going to balance itself out right now. The person that's going to buy this property is going to pay the most value. It's not going to be you or I. We're not the ones buying the house. The buyer is going to buy the house. Let them dictate the price. Let's set a price that'll get them in the door first. Agree?
Yes.
Okay.
Good. Anybody else? Michelle, how would you handle somebody that wants to list high and test the market right now?
Explain to them sort of what Kong just said, but I actually break it down a little bit leaner and tell them that it used to be, the first 3 weeks were the prime time to see what your marketing, what buyers were going to do. Now I tell them it's within the first week. If we have, 10 to 12, 10 to 15 showings in the first week, even the first 2 to 3 days, and we don't have an offer, then we really got to sit back and look at what's the problem. What's the feedback we're getting? And I share all the feedback with them. Typically it comes down to price. So I tell them in that first week, If we don't have something based on the feedback, then we know right away we're too high. So do you want to risk it? Do you want to wait the week, or do you want to try to get the most activity in that shortest amount of time in this market, this very unusual market that we're in? And most understand it then, but I tell them that the time has changed. It used to be, I always said the first 3 weeks. Now I back it up to the first week. And, based on specifically the area that you're in, and most understand it then, and then we kind of concentrate and buckle down on really what the best asking price is and not going too high.
Okay. Now, Michelle, if they're wanting to list it way too high, are you still willing to take the listing and test it if they're willing to bring it down? And do you get them to sign any sort of price reduction up front, or do you wait to get that signed?
So I will take the listing, but with the understanding that if within that first week, if we don't have an offer, we've got strong showings and we've got good feedback, but it's been priced, that you agree to reduce it within that first week. And I have them put that in writing for me.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll still take it and test the market for them just to show them, but in the back of my mind, knowing that it's priced too high. Okay,
good. Kara, how about you? How would you handle that same situation where somebody wants to test the market, listed aggressively high? Would you take the listing? Would you get the price reduction up front, or what would you say to them?
Well, I agree with Kong and Michelle, and I do a blend of both of them. I will take the listing, and I also get in writing like what the reductions are going to be, and the date that they authorize me and Remax to make those adjustments, so that they're right up front, they're signed. I don't have to go back out, chase paperwork, stuff like that. But again, I go back to the comps, I go back to the competition, like Kong said, and trying to drive it, from that aspect. But again, I also talk to them about a lot of the listings that I have that they've run up. And, and it's like, I tell them, if I have a house that I've listed for, I work for you, Mr. Seller. So if I list your house at 200,000, it's because I think that it's, it's going to sell, or it should sell. The value of it is 200,000. I mean, I get paid on commission. So I'm right with you. Our goals are the same. If I thought it was going to sell for 250, I would list it at 250. So we might get this to run up to 250. However, the appraisal, if they have a contingency, it's not going to be there unless we get very, very lucky and something happens between today and whenever that appraiser comes out here and somebody else has purchased something cash, which is going to drive our appraisal. So I give them that right up front so that they're not upset if that happens.
Okay, good. Brooks, how would you actually handle it?
Yeah, I had this come up a couple times here this week, and one was with a divorce attorney that I'm currently working with both sides and trying to get each attorney to agree on something. But essentially what I do is explain to them, I give people a range of where I think it's going to sell at. And then within that range, obviously we might get competition that pushes it up past that. But I tell them that right now, on average, between the counties, most average days on market is around 14 days. So instead of really trying to test the waters on price, let's list it somewhat fairly close to the fair value, maybe a little bit above, get the competition to compete over it, and ultimately clean up the terms, increase the price. But, anything, if we list it way too high and test the waters, if it gets past that 7 days and in that 7 to 14 days, the first thought in people's mind is, what's wrong with the property? It almost becomes stigmatized in this market if it gets past that first week. Okay.
All right. How about Sherry Anderson? Are you ready? Are you off the phone, Sherry? Bill's laughing. How would you handle it as far as somebody wants to test the market?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep, I can hear you now.
Yeah, I'm dealing with clients that are in California with a 3-hour time frame. It's a little nerve-wracking here, but anyway, so it's kind of like what everybody else said. I, of course, would want the listing. Now, if they're ridiculous, let's say the house is really worth 200 and they're like, no, we want to list it at 299. Honestly, I walk away. I'm not dealing with them. I know they're going to be a pain in the butt. So it's like, good luck, people. But I do put it in writing right on the listing agreement. So it might say, you know, if we don't have at least, you know, 5 to 7 showings or an offer within the first week, they automatically agree to a $5,000 or $10,000 price reduction, depending upon the price point that we're in. But that's what I kind of judge it on, you know, the amount of showings and or if we received an offer or not.
Okay. You know, it's funny you said that about 200 and they want to list it at 299. My dad and I own a property in Cedar Cliff on Cornell, and Brent had a tenant that wanted to buy it, and then they wanted to wait until they kept postponing and wanting to wait. Well, when we originally started talking to them last year and we were doing the comps, they were right around 200,000. Then they went to 205. Then they went to 215. And now Brooks is telling me he just sold a house on Carlisle Road across from Cedar Cliff that isn't half as nice as what we have for 250. So at what point are we experts on these values? Because when I looked at the comps last year, the price on my house was 200. Now I can get 250 for it. Who knows? Maybe by next year we'll get 299. I mean, it is just an unbelievable market that the competition is driving these prices up. We don't know where it's going to go from now. So, like, I think Michelle said, Sherry said, Kong said, everybody said they would take the listing. As long as it wasn't drastically overpriced, they would take the listing. And it's important to not be such an expert right now. I mean, my father and I have told people for years, don't try to be an expert in the market that we're in, because we don't know what it's really going to sell for. The amount of competition will drive it to a price that somebody's willing to pay for it. And that's what the market is. Hopefully we have lenient appraisers that are going to work with us on these things, and some of these things will appraise, because God knows how they're going to appraise unless they're waiving financing contingencies. But how about, is Bobby Stevens still on here? Yep, I see no video, but I see his. You there, Bobby? How about Poppy? What would you say in reference to somebody that wants to list high right now? Would you recommend taking the listing, not taking the listing, or the price reduction, or what are your thoughts?
Well, I would absolutely take the listing unless it was so ridiculously overpriced, like Michelle Porter Sherry pointed out, you know, $100,000 overpriced. That person is unreasonable. However, I would take the listing, and as everybody has said, and the old Mike Berry phrase goes, you beat them down week after week, but in this market, you don't have to do it week after week. With the price adjustment, you should get it in line so that you can get a reasonable price for your seller. One of the other things I'd like to add back to the for sale by owner situation, with everyone that you talk to, don't forget to tell them that we're in a very litigious society, and we have errors and omission insurance, which is very important to them in every aspect, because if they handle it themselves and do something wrong, as was pointed out, an attorney is very expensive, especially if it gets to be some sort of a court case. So use the doubt drop on them to make them see your value in what you do when you're trying to list that property for them as a for sale by owner. And don't forget, the statistics are now showing that we're getting 20 to 30% overpriced. So your value is 6% in any marketplace to list a property is pretty darn cheap, because they're still netting 40, and those numbers are those numbers. They're not mine or anybody else's.
Okay.
And people understand one thing more than anything else, what they're going to net in their pocket and the value to it. So please don't forget that when you're talking to these customers.
Okay. Is there anybody out there that's experiencing an objection that they don't want to give them a 6-month listing? You know, that they only want to give them a 60-day listing or a 90-day listing. And would you or would you not take it in this marketplace? So Michelle, if somebody said that they didn't want to give you a whole 6 months and they wanted to give you 90 days, would you take it?
At this point, I probably would. You know, a year or two ago, I probably would have said no.
Right.
But right now, I'll say yes, because if it doesn't sell in that first 3 months, and it's because of something I've advised them to do that they didn't want to do, then maybe I don't want a relationship with them any longer.
Exactly. Kara, how about you? Would you take a 90-day listing? Well, let me ask you this. Would you take a 60-day listing?
Oh, 60 short, but it depends on the property. If it's the right property and the right price and everything's, you know, then yes, I would. Yeah.
Let me, other than commercial, let's go strictly residential. Okay. Have you had any residential listings that have lasted more than 60 days in the last 6 months?
Yes.
Oh, you have?
Yes. I mean, but they weren't priced right.
Okay. Michelle, have you had any?
Yes.
You
I've
have?
got one right now. It's not priced right, and she
Not
will
priced.
not come down.
Yep.
Okay. Sherry Anderson.
No, actually, luckily we're, you know, that high priced one that you actually had shown on Fairfield for 619. That's been under contract for a few weeks.
Yep. So other than that one that might have taken a little longer than 60 days, everything you've taken is sold within 60 days.
Yeah, but even that one, we did get a contract within 45 days.
Yep.
But, you know, it's the unique ones that might take a little bit longer. So just like Michelle said, or Stacy said, it may depend upon the property itself, if you're willing to go more than 60 days or more than 90 days.
Yep. Kong, how about you? Have you had any? Would you take a listing, if it was in Good Hope South, would you take a listing for 60 days?
I'll tell you what, Mr. Seller, I will, as long as you reprice it to sell within 60 days.
Okay. All right. Good. Jim Penny, you had raised your hand. You had a question, sir.
Oh, just a comment. I had one, I guess, about 4 or 5 months ago where we did 90 days and it sold. Was a townhouse down in Melron Court in Carlisle.
Good. So as you can see, a lot of us who've been in the business for a long period of time are so used to taking 6-month listings. Some people have, in areas where properties didn't sell, took yearly listings, not just 6 month. Like for instance, Regina in Potter County, she was used to getting listings for a year, not for 6 months. But now with the market the way it is, look how we've all changed. We've all been flexible because we know that if it's priced right, it's going to sell. How about you, Brooks? What would you do?
Yeah, like everyone's saying, it just depends on the property and the price, but I would not be afraid to take a shorter term listing agreement if you know, I feel it's priced somewhat close, for that matter, to what I think it's going to sell. And obviously, if there's an expectation there that we're going to make a price reduction, if for some time, you know, in the first 2-3 weeks, we don't get the activity we want, we'll reduce it.
So good. Well, I think this has been a good call, Brooks. I like the topic with the objections. I think next week we ought to expand on this and do 3 more. We did 3 objections this week. Let's try 3 more next week and see where everybody's mindset is to how they're handling business in today's world versus what we're used to in the past. So if everybody agrees with that, let's try to do next week, pick a few more objections and hammer out and see what how they're handling it. Okay. Dad, any closing comments?
Yeah, I was listening to Darren Hardy the other day, and one of the things he said that hit me very, very strong was each and every one of us strive to get just a little bit better each day. Really baby steps. Don't try to do it all at once. Take that little step forward, just a little bit of self-improvement, and get on with your life, but make sure you strive every day to be just that little bit better. Have a great, great week.
Yep. That's my favorite movie, Dad. What about Bob?
Don't worry.
Baby steps.
Very true.
Baby steps. All right, everybody. Brooks, thank you for a great topic. We'll look forward to seeing you next week. We'll do some more objections. And if you need us, call us. Talk to you later.
And if you guys have a particular one you want to talk about, shoot me an email and I'll add it to the list.
Thank you.
See you guys.